We're learning more about the controversy surrounding COMELEC Chief Andres Andy Bautista and his estranged wife. The issue began last Friday when his wife Patricia Bautista faced select members of the media, including CNN Philippines. She reveals supposed unexplained wealth of the election chief and his alleged corrupt practices. But Andres Bautista belies the claims and says the move of his wife was an attempt to blackmail and extort more money from him. Meanwhile, the lawyer Patricia Bautista, Martin Loon, tells CNN Philippines his client is not extorting money from Bautista. But the COMELEC chief says he has proof. Our AC Nichols has more.
So who's telling the truth? Commission on Elections Chairman Andres Bautista insists his estranged wife Patricia wants 620 million peso settlement money to end their 17-year marriage. Patricia's lawyer Martin Loon notes that figure came from the poll chief. Actually, Loon says his client only wants 260 million pesos and denies Patricia ever tried to extort money from her husband.
Yung hapo lang ni Mrs. Bautista, ma'am, one half po ng malinis na pera, na malinis na assets nung kanyang pamilya at hindi namin alam, ma'am, which is malinis at which is hindi.
Bautista says that number never came up during their settlement talks. In fact, he says the figure they initially agreed on was much lower. According to the poll chief, he and Patricia were supposed to sign an agreement already that he would initially give her 70 million pesos. He would add another 20 million over 3 years for a total of 90 million pesos.
In the end, okay, I think that document should be brought out, which I plan to do. You know? What we had agreed upon.
Bautista says his wife's demands ballooned when Loon came into the picture. He points to Loon as the one who came up with the 620 million figure.
Itong 620 came from her lawyer, Attorney Martin Loon. And very specifically, the way it was presented was she wanted 200 for her, 75 each for the children. That's 4 times 75, which is 300, plus the 2 Pacific units, which is 120. So that's where the 620 came from.
Bautista notes it was also Loon who told him Patricia will bring the matter to President Duterte if he doesn't shell out the money.
If you do not settle, she will be going to Duterte. I have the text.
The poll chief says he will make the text message public at the right time. AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
A resolution was filed in the House of Representatives calling for an investigation into the alleged multi-million peso unexplained wealth of COMELEC Chairman Andres Bautista. Speaking to CNN Philippines, Kabayan Party List Representative Harry Roque says he wants to look into the so-called commission sheets listing monies received by the COMELEC chief for allegedly received money.
Lawyering is not a business. It is a noble profession. And when you give away commissions for clients' referral, it's as if you're conducting your practice as an ordinary business. It's unethical to treat the practice of law as an ordinary business.
So no lawyer should get any commission?
No, especially when you're a sitting government official.
So let's go to that. So,
well, aside from being unethical, there is the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. And when you're a public official, you're not supposed to be getting any gift, any consideration from anyone who has any interest before your office.
Catch the full interview with Congressman Harry Roque later at 7:30. Let's go above and beyond the headlines with Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chair Richard Gordon. Good evening, Senator. Welcome to Newsline.
Good evening, Ruth. Good evening.
Senator, there's a resolution filed by Majority Leader Tito Sotto calling on the Blue Ribbon Committee to investigate these allegations against COMELEC Chief Andres Bautista as claimed by his wife. But some of your colleagues are saying you have to determine first the jurisdiction of the committee. So what's your response to that?
Well, the jurisdiction of the committee is done by, first, the Rules Committee under the Majority Floor Leader. Or me, no? Motu proprio, I can handle it as Blue Ribbon. I don't need the Rules Committee. I can just call a hearing because I feel motu proprio. That's why the Blue Ribbon seems to be very powerful. Call a hearing on this matter. The only thing that is making me hesitate is this. We have to feel our way through this one because if somebody were to file an impeachment proceeding, that is done in the House. The House will now determine whether there are grounds for an impeachment, whether he violated rules and regulations. And if there is an impeachment that is filed, that is approved by the House, it will now go to the Senate, and we will now have to act as judges, no longer as senators, but as senator judges that will rule on whether he is guilty or not. That is the procedure. So if I start investigating it now, then I am preempting whatever impeachment proceedings there may be, and I may be prejudging the case unnecessarily.
So ang gusto niyo pong mangyari muna, Senator, is will you just wait for a possible impeachment complaint to be filed? Because some of your colleagues are also saying pwede rin naman daw magamit yung investigasyon nitong Blue Ribbon Committee to file naman an impeachment complaint, kung ano man yung findings ng committee.
Well, pwede yun. Pero I'd much prefer that a citizen or a congressman file the case against them. Because in the first place, this is a constitutional official, and I'd like to respect constitutional officials as far as I can.
So for now, Senator, in as much as you said na you can conduct your own investigation motu proprio, no? Medyo backseat muna tayo and we'll wait for a while. Ganun po ba?
Hindi naman tayo magtatagal yan eh. Remember, these are constitutional officials. You respect the constitutional office that they hold, no? Now, kung ganyan ang laban, ang pwede mo lang gawin sa isang constitutional official ay tanggalin mo siya by impeachment, no? At kung yan ang objective mo, okay. Ngayon, kung Blue Ribbon, yung accountability niya lang. Hindi ba siya file ng tama na salin? Ito ba, nakuha niya ba itong mga regalong ito, itong mga perang ito, tumanggap ba siya ng pabuya sa Smartmatic, doon sa yung ibang mga kasosyo niya, o kasama niya, o yung mga kaibigan niya, binigyan ba niya na ginamit niya mga conduit, halimbawa yung Dinyo Law Office para makakuha siya ng pera. Iyan ay bagay na pagtutugisin ng impeachment proceedings sa House.
So you would rather wait muna, Senator? Ganun po ba?
Well, I'd rather do that for a while. I will, of course, consult our colleagues tomorrow because pag magmadali tayo, baka mamaya mapipreempt tayo pagdating doon sa kaso, mapiprejudge natin yung kaso.
May binanggit din po itong sila Senator Soto, also Senator Grace Poe, that these allegations may cast doubt daw on the result of the 2016 elections. Of course, you were elected in the 2016 elections. Ano po masasabi niyo dito?
Anything can cast down, can cast doubts. In fact, the COMELEC has been a very, an office that casts a lot of doubts, not only in this election, but since time immemorial. The COMELEC is, I would call, a recidivist. Paulit-ulit na meron na maraming dayaan sa COMELEC. So, I'm not worried about that. You have to look at and focus at the facts before you. Yung facts before you, hindi ka pwede mag-speculate. You can only decide on the evidence. Kaya lang sa impeachment, mas madali. Because almost political yung vote dyan eh. Yan ang mahirap dyan. Now, pagka sinabi, ayoko yung mukha niya, tapos siya, di ba? Ayoko yung pagsasagot niya at bumoto laban sa kanya, tapos siya. Kaya, pag-aaralan ko mabuti bago ako mag-desisyon.
Senator Gordon, there's also an investigation ongoing now at the NBI because Justice Secretary told the NBI to look into yung possible nga yung hindi na-declare ng tama itong SAL and then also possible violations of the anti-money laundering law. Ano po yung posibleng implication nito sa impeachment or kung sakaling mag-imbestiga rin po ang Senate Blue Ribbon Committee?
Tama yon because ako, hindi naman ako investigation hungry. Meron tayo mga law enforcement agencies na dapat gawin mo nila yung tungkulin nila. Binabayaran sila ng gobyerno, ang sistema natin, ang NBI, mag-iimbestiga, may Department of Justice kung magpapile ng kaso, o sa education pa sa constitutional officers, mga impeachment, meron ganon. So tama yan, gawin muna nila yung tungkulin nila bago tayo magkawan. Kung nakala natin talagang hausyaw o kalokohan yung ginawa ng NBI, sila masasama sa investigasyon namin.
Okay, Senator, hindi naman po sa kinukuha na namin agad yung judgment nyo on this issue, ano? But at face value, yung seriousness po ba, nakikita nyo po ba na these are serious charges against the COMELEC chief?
Oh, definitely, because may mga dokumento eh. At maraming dokumento. Kailangan paliwanag isa-isa yung mga dokumento yan, no? Beyond the away ng mag-asawa, kailangan tingnan mo, yun lang ang titingnan mo. Because yung away ng mag-asawa, that can be in a family court, that can be in another somebody who can offer psychological help, no? Pero itong mga allegations na may mga deposito sa bangko, sa Luzon Development Bank, kaibigan ata ni COMELEC chairman, o yung mga allegations na yung kaibigan niya, best friend niya, yung si Dinyo, yung kanyang SALN, At saka yung lingkaw ko, yung ata may-ari ng Luzon Development Bank, kaibigan niya rin. At saka yung may allegations ngayon, nakita ko, na mga deposits na below 500,000, which is in avoidance of the SALN. Nakahilera yun, may 490, may 400, may 390, para hindi makita. Kung talaga walang tinatago, dapat milyon-milyon yan. Yan yung violation sa AMLA, hindi sa SALN, sa AMLA.
Senator, medyo interesado rin ho kami dun sa yung spousal privilege, yung pagtestigo ng asawa sa kapwa niya. Asawa, will this apply here? How will this work?
Well, a wife cannot testify against her husband. As a general rule, no? May mga possible exceptions yan, no? Kaya nga hinihiwalay ko, halimbawa, the husband tries to kill the wife. Yan, binubugbog niya, pwedeng magkaroon ng exemption yan. Ina-abuse niya. Pero ito, ihiwalay ko yung, ibig sabihin, criminal case against each other. Pwede yan na mag-file sila. Pero, ibig sabihin, yung ebidensya talagang tutugusin natin maigi. Pero dapat ihiwalay natin yung tinatawag na kaso na criminal, na tinatawag nga itong unexplained wealth, itong corruption, itong SALN, iba yan. Iba sa away na mag-asawa. Domestic yun . Ito talagang criminal law ang involved dito.
Okay, thank you very much to Senator Richard Gordon, Chair of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Lawmakers at the House of Representatives agreed in a caucus that they will approve the postponement of the barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections as requested by President Rodrigo Duterte. But our Joyce Ilas tells us congressmen refused to grant Mr. Duterte one thing.
A caucus of the House of Representatives agreed to immediately pass a bill that would postpone the barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections this October to May 2018, upon the request of President Duterte. But lawmakers rejected another request of the President, appointing new officials pending the election. House Committee on Suffrage Chairman Sherwin Tugna says lawmakers will instead endorse a holdover provision, which will retain sitting barangay officials until the next elections.
That only goes to show in our Republican system of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary, that we are co-equal and we are an independent agency of the government.
Barangay officials are classified under the Constitution as, quote, elective local officials who are installed into office by electoral mandate, not by appointment.
The President earlier asked Congress to postpone the polls and be granted the power to appoint barangay officials. He claims 40% of all barangay chairmen are linked to drugs. Tugna believes holding elections this year will hamper the war against drugs, especially at the barangay level.
Siyempre, there's a possibility na ikadel nila yung mga ilang kabarangay nila at pagtakpan kasi siyempre halalan .
Some opposition lawmakers, however, are against postponing the elections because of the drug problem.
After 1 year ng patayan, ng paghahabol sa mga drug lords and drug users and pushers, hindi pa ba sila na-control? Pwede naman natin i-suspend. Kasuhan natin yung mga involved sa drugs.
Senator Kiko Pangilinan is also supporting the holding of elections this October. But for Senate Local Government Committee Chairman Sonny Angara, he will not object to a postponement, as the election budget can be realigned to the rehabilitation of Marawi or fund the free tuition law. Tugna says the House of Representatives will move the barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections to May 2018 to synchronize it with a possible national plebiscite or referendum to approve possible changes in the Constitution in line with the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law, which is another priority of the President. Tugna says this will result in more savings for the government. Joyce Ilas, CNN Philippines.
We'll have more local news later in the program, but first, here's the world at a glance. Australian police say they have destroyed 2 international crime syndicates and seized more than 2 tons of narcotics destined for Australian streets. They say the potential street value of the drugs was around $650 million. They say they coordinated with their counterparts in Dubai and the Netherlands to carry out simultaneous arrests early Tuesday morning in Sydney and Dubai. 10 suspects were taken into custody in Sydney, while police in the United Arab Emirates arrested 5 Australians. Police in the Netherlands arrested 2 other people. Take a look at this. 28 passengers and 3 crew members had to be rescued from a ferry boat that caught fire in southern Chile on Sunday. The Chilean Navy was able to rescue everyone and no injuries were reported. Officials are investigating the fire that is believed to have started in the engine room. And in the United States, 6 months into his presidency, Donald Trump's overall approval rating stands at its lowest point in CNN polling. Overall, 38% say they approve of Trump's handling of the presidency, with 56% saying they disapprove. 24% of Americans say they trust all or most of what they hear in official communications from the White House, while 30% say they trust nothing at all that they hear from the president's office. The CNN poll was conducted by SSRS by telephone August 3 to 6 among 1,018 adults. A British model speaks up about her harrowing ordeal when she was abducted in Italy. 20-year-old Chloe Ayling told authorities that after she was kidnapped, she was drugged and stuffed into a suitcase by 2 men. She says those men then loaded her into the trunk of a car and took her to a remote village. Ayling was held captive for 6 days. Her kidnappers planned to auction her as a sex slave on the dark web.
I've been through a terrifying experience. I feared for my life, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour. I am incredibly grateful to the Italian and UK authorities for all they have done to secure my safe release. I have just arrived home after 4 weeks of being in Italy, and I haven't had the time to gather my thoughts. I am not at liberty to say anything further until I have been debriefed by the UK police.
Police say a 30-year-old Polish national who resides in the UK was arrested on kidnapping charges after dropping Ayling off outside the British consulate building in Milan on July 17. Authorities say they are searching for at least one more person in connection with the kidnapping. The government denies it is allowing the United States to carry out airstrikes against ISIS in the country. David Santos has that story.
If the U.S. can have its way, it wants to launch airstrikes against ISIS targets in the country. That's according to a report on NBC News, quoting Pentagon officials. If plans push through, the U.S. will use armed drones to carry out the attacks. But the Duterte administration is quick to dismiss the report.
The DND denies any discussions regarding the use of U.S. drones. Such a proposition has to undergo a process and an agreement must be reached that should have the approval of both the highest officials of our nations.
There's even a proposal, the report adds, to redeploy U.S. troops in Mindanao. In 2002, U.S. Special Forces were sent to Zamboanga City to help the AFP fight the Abu Sayyaf as part of the Second Front in the U.S. global war on terror. It was downsized in 2014, a decision now the U.S. apparently regrets following the raging war in Marawi. Malacanang officials also denied these proposals were raised during Monday's meeting between President Duterte and U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. In a message to CNN Philippines, AFP Chief Ed Año says the mutual defense treaty with the U.S. is limited to technical assistance and training. Leftist group Bayan says the proposed U.S. airstrikes violate the Constitution and national sovereignty. There's also strong opposition, especially in Marawi's Ground Zero.
Baka maraming mamatay na tao. Baka pati yung mga militar natin na madamay.
Hindi ako papayag dun sa kwan eh. Kasi malakas naman ang pwersa ng gobyerno natin ng Pilipinas eh.
The reported U.S. proposal comes after Washington-based Pew Research Center released a survey showing ISIS as the world's current main security threat. In the country, 7 in 10 people fear ISIS, followed by threats due to climate change and cyber attacks. Less than half of Filipinos consider China's expanding power as a security concern. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
Congressmen have agreed in a caucus today to postpone the barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections as requested by President Duterte. But Senator Kiko Pangilinan disagrees and says the polls should push through. Senate Local Government Committee Chairman Sani Angara says he won't object to a postponement so the money for it can be realigned for the rehabilitation of Marawi or to fund the free tuition law. We ask you if you are in favor of postponing the barangay and SK elections. Here are your voices.
Pwede rin dahil siyempre gastos ng gobyerno naman yun eh. Pero dapat lang dahil siyempre gusto natin yung medyo mawala yung mga gastos at ibigay na lang sa mga mamamayan na naghihirap.
Para mapalitan naman yung mga bulok na nakapwesto. Di ba? Bigyan natin ng chance naman yung iba.
Hindi ako pabor na. Dapat maupo na yung dapat ihalal. Hindi yung pipili pa ng magtatagal lang sa kapangyarihan yung mga nakaupo ngayon.
Okay lang para maayos yung sistema.
The Supreme Court affirms its earlier ruling that allowed the burial of former President Ferdinand Marcos at talibigan ng mga bayani. SC spokesperson Theodore Te announced in a media briefing that the court denied all appeals on its decision. Marcos was buried at talibigan ng mga bayani on November 18 last year, 10 days after the court allowed it.
It is a denial of the motion for reconsideration. So, under the rules, each party is allowed only one motion for reconsideration, unless the other party wishes to file a motion, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I would suppose upon the lapse of the period, it becomes final.
In other news, transport regulators and airport officials vow to intensify their crackdown against abusive taxi drivers and so-called colorum or illegal public utility vehicles. Makoy Popioko has that story.
After a month-long vacation in his hometown in Ilocos Norte, overseas Filipino worker Carmelo Gawiran is heading back to Angola in Africa, where he works as a heavy machine operator. Gawiran says he has encountered dozens of abusive taxi drivers who either charged him double the fare on the meter or ripped him off with an overcharged fixed amount. He says the scheme is a sad welcome for homesick OFWs like him.
Sana wag silang abusado masyado. Kasi pare-parehas naman tayong naghahanap buhay.
From 1,000 peso fine for colorum or vehicles running without legal permits to convey passengers, the fine has been raised to 120,000 pesos.
Ang akin lang hong panawagan sa ating mga manlalakbay. Unang-una huwag sila makikipag-usap sa mga solicitors. Isa ho yun. Pangalawa, pag hindi markado ang sasakyan at plain kotse lang, huwag ho nilang papatulan kasi wala ho tayong control doon.
Around 400 cases of overcharging and abusive drivers are also recorded per month, mostly involving white or ordinary taxis. Taxi driver Elmer Benizano says not all of them are abusive. He says, in fact, he works hard to erase such stereotype among taxi drivers.
Yung iba, sa amin talaga napapagbuntungan din kami. Kasi pagkagaling kasi sa kanila, galit na yung pupunta sa amin. Hindi maiwasan kasi.
LTFRB Chairman Martin Delgar says 8 additional LTFRB personnel were deployed around the 4 airport terminals in Metro Manila.
Nasa gilid ng taxi may LTFRB hotline 1342. So you can call that hotline.
Makoy Popioko, CNN, Philippines.